Is on here on Reinvent Ideal, and tonight we got a lot to talk about. For one, there's going to be a speech tomorrow by Jerome Powell at about 12:35. Should I cover that? Maybe I will. Hyperliquid was a darling of Arthur Hayes, but now he's dumping it after saying that it was going to do 126x. What's going on there? Oh, the persistent inflation that's also been going on and has been keeping the Fed from being able to reach their 2% target. And nobody can seem to figure out just what the cause of all this persistent inflation is. I have a theory on that tonight. Also, is it possible that the DXY breaks a support line that it's held for 14 years? And why is the Treasury buying back its own bonds? And does this even matter? Particularly, does it matter for crypto? Gonna find out today. Shut the FUD up starts right now. It's Macro Monday, my friends. And today, what I want to focus on is a little story that a lot of people have been kind of sending me the announcements of them on X, like wanting me to say, is this something meaningful? Or is this something that we should totally ignore and has nothing to do with anything? Or is it not even big enough to be meaningful? And that's the Treasury buying back its own bonds, because they know you talk about the Treasury all the time, especially the 10-year Treasury yield and how that affects crypto. So now that the Treasury is buying back their own bonds, does that mean anything for us? Got a lot to say about that. Also, the Ethereum chart right now is looking eerily familiar. Eerily familiar to how we saw it about one cycle ago. A little bit longer, though. Got that to discuss. Also, a lot of people are complaining to Mr. Hart, complaining to Richard Hart, because apparently he's supposed to be doing something here that will just magically make the coins pump. I mean, I've said this a gazillion times right here that even if he got on and streamed, it would not do a damn thing for the price. So we got to get into that today. Is Pulse Chain this massive failure because it hasn't performed like other L1s have when they experienced their first 850 days of existence? Going to take that one on too, because I'm sure you've seen the chart on X that's being shared and sent around. So we'll get into all of that here, but first, let's take a look at the market, because apparently it's all over. You know that, guys? Yeah, it's all over, apparently. Altcoin season apparently happened. I mean, none of the altcoins pumped, but there's another thing that's being shared all over X that says, yeah, altcoin season, it's over now. It happened, apparently, according to some alt season index indicator. And I'd like to know, what kind of crack is that indicator smoking? I want to know, how are they measuring that? Is it the ETH to BTC ratio? Because I know, even the one on Coin Market Cap is extremely flawed. It's just looking at the past 90 days and how many altcoins outperformed Bitcoin. So we'll get into all of that here. But first, let's take a look at the usual stuff that we like to look at. Oh, my. Look at this market. It looks terrible. It's all over, guys. Yes. You better sell all your coins now because the bear market is here, right? Sure. Yeah. Look at this. Bitcoin went all the way down to 112,800. Oh my. That's just absolutely disastrous. It's such a bear market price now, isn't it? Come on now. Ethereum is down to about 4,200, which Yeah, I recognize that that's not great because it's not even above the previous bull market high from last cycle. But my God, we've seen Ethereum a lot worse right here. So for it to be holding at 42 with all of the negativity and economic uncertainty that exists right now, that's incredible. XRP, oh yeah, down to 284. Well, my God, this thing stood at 50 cents for the longest time. It's almost 6 times that price now, and everybody's bitching. Unbelievable. Solana, blah, blah, Cardanzo, Hyperliquid. Yeah, we got a lot to say about Hyperliquid because everybody's all upset that Arthur Hayes sold his bag, which I got a lot to say about that too because it just reminded me of like something else, another particular figure in crypto that everybody finds fashionable to complain about today. Because, yeah, whenever the prices are down, you know what that is? It's someone else's fault. There's always like this one person that could fix all of this with just a flick of a snap. Just snap their fingers and it fixes everything. See, I didn't know that. I mean, all this time here, I've been in these assets since 2017, and I did not know all this time here that somebody had that kind of magic. Now, if I gotta be upset about something, I guess it would be that the whole Sonic ecosystem's taking a really bad punch to the face right now. I mean, this thing was holding at about 30 cents a piece. Now it's down to less than 25 cents a piece. That's just Sonic itself. When you take a look at some of the other assets on Sonic, like, Shadow Exchange, this had been holding at $20 for a long time. Now it's down to $7. Spooky Swap is getting beaten pretty bad. Oh my, man. Beats got hit real bad today too. Down a whole 30%. But these are penny coins, and you know how I like the penny coins. You know why I like them and everything. Let's take a look at the Richard Hart Pulse Chain ecosystem. This is not looking too hot right here. Let me refresh. Ink seems to be the standout here. It's kind of holding its ground and everything. Not sure why that is, but when we look at everything else right here, it's not a very pretty sight. Everything has taken a very swift beating, and it seems like the gains that it had made in the past 2 months, the ground that it reclaimed, has now been given up here again. Oh my God, it's all over. You need to sell out right now because it's never coming back. And this has the entire community, or at least a big chunk of the community, all pissed off to the point where they're leaving a whole bunch of nasty comments on Richard's X. And he's going on a blocking spree, blocking all of these people here. Yeah, if you guys wanted to stick it to Richard, well, gee, all it's doing is it's just getting you blocked, so maybe you should try to consider this possibility that, like, one, what is it that's causing these prices to come down? Can anybody tell me that? Anyone tell me what's causing the prices to come down? Because you see, there's always a cause. Apparently everybody has forgotten this, that we live in a world of causality. There is action and a corresponding reaction. There is a cause for every effect. When you see these prices come down, this is not random. There's always a reason behind it. Just like when there is prices going up, there is always a reason behind it. It's the subject of my book, Decrypting Crypto. If you are finding yourself confused at what's going on in the market right now, because you're probably one of those folks that got told the unfortunate mistruth that, it's the 4th year, and in the 4th year, crypto has to go up. It has to, because it's the 4th year, and it's always gone up. If you're one of those poor folks that have been misfortunately told that line of crap, please get your hands on a copy of my book. This isn't shameless promotion. This is a desperate intervention for your sanity and also for the cleanliness of my timeline. Oh, speaking of that, we will have, I haven't reached out to T-Bird yet, but he's said he was busy up until this day, so I guess I can reach out to him now. And let's see if we can get him on this week. See if he can come on here and we can have that discussion about what is it that causes the cycle, because that's a very important discussion for us to have. Strangely, the stock market has reached new all-time highs. Now, the futures are down here, but today the market was all up. I don't think that there's really any important stories going on here. Everything here just kind of looks like just a bunch of fluff, but a fluff news day in the financial press. The dollar index has come down just a little bit, but nothing meaningful, at least not to me. Seems like a slow grind down, but really it could make back everything that it lost. It could make it all back within one day. So this is nothing to write home about. See, what was something to write home about, though, was like these very sharp spikes. I mean, this one we had on the day of the rate cut announcement. This one was the very next day. And then another one right here. Sheesh. It's not supposed to be doing that when they cut the rates. Because if you supposedly earn a lower interest rate on your dollar bills, well, then your dollar bills are not that strong. They're weaker. But the bond market is being very defiant against what the Fed is doing. Instead of bond yields going down, they went up, which is also not something that's supposed to happen. Let's see, is this the latest here for those bond yields? I'm going to refresh this here. Yeah, it's the latest. And still that 10-year Treasury is at 4.14%. And as long as that's high, well, we're not going to have a bull run. You're not going to see risk on assets do well when you've got a 10-year Treasury at 4.14%, because there's no reason to go into risk on assets. And all of you dummies out there that are hate posting and complaining on X and saying, "Oh, Richard, you need to step up and do something," you guys need to get investment literate, because you're making yourselves look real stupid and you're going to lose a lot of money. Your investment illiteracy is going to cost you life-changing wealth, and it's going to cost you all of your investment. If you don't get your heads out of your butts and learn how this stuff works, you may as well just sell your bags, take out the money, and just set it on fire. Because if you're not going to lose it being stupid in crypto, you're going to lose it being stupid in something else. So, guys, please get investment literate. Man, that's going to be my next project. Next project is going to be a book just on investment literacy. Try to make it easy for people to learn and grasp. Because, yes, I understand that it's not the sexiest, most exciting thing to learn about. I understand that. But, my God, if there's one thing you should learn, if there's one language you should know besides English, it's the language of investments, of Wall Street, or of accounting even. If you understand accounting, you'll understand all this. A little bit of housekeeping here. If you want a copy of this book for free, you can get a copy of this book for free. It's called Your Parents Were Wrong, Debunking and Replacing Outdated Advice. And when it comes to that advice, it's going to be debunking stuff like, oh, you got to do good in school and make good grades, because good grades will get you into a good college, and good college gets you a good job, and good job will get you well paid and have you set for life. No, half the garbage they teach you in school is not worth a thing, and you're never going to use it again in your life. Something that they should have taught you in school was investment literacy, which of course they didn't, because they wanted you to be crippled throughout the entirety of your life. So, if you want to learn the things that you should have learned, but your parents either didn't know or just didn't care to teach you, you can get a copy of this book for free. All you got to do is head on over to my Substack, reinventideal.substack.com. That's reinventideal.substack.com. And click right here in the middle tab that says free gift. And here you can get a copy of my book 100% for free just by subscribing to my Substack. And it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe to it. Absolutely nothing. You can be a free subscriber. There's paid subscribers. Paid subscribers, they get a copy of this book too on top of this one. But if you just want to be a free subscriber, you get a free book. That is my gift to you. Because I'm here to help you guys. I'm here to help you. All right, I see my number one cheerleader, Tam Tam, is in the chat. It's nice to see you, Tam. Oh, RH Max is here as well. And Mr. Max, Quattro Cinco, he says, October soon. I got some thoughts on that. Armando Corral, he also says, yep. He also says that, what does he say? GTSY, bros? What's that? That's some acronym I'm not familiar with. And Soulite says gold up. Yeah, gold's going to keep going up, I think. So, we got a couple of things happening this week. Like, why is it, why is this month sucking so bad? I mean, still, Bitcoin is up on the month, which is impressive. Because to be up on the month right now, and to have the possibility of closing out September in the green, that would be great. Because whenever we had a green September, the rest of the year was typically pretty green. Now, I think that that's going to be a very difficult that's going to be a very difficult thing to achieve because there's still so much economic uncertainty just this week. I mean, tomorrow, Jerome Powell is going to deliver a speech, and it's not anything like really all that special. I made it on my post sound like this was something totally unannounced. No, this is something that was scheduled for a while. And it's at the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce about an economic outlook. They have this economic outlook luncheon. I think that it may be interesting in the sense that Jerome Powell is probably going to get asked about the fact that, well, you cut the rates, and it looks like the opposite of what people wanted to have happened is happening now because the long-term rates are going up, the mortgage rates are going up, so it's not having the effect that it was supposed to have. What do you think about that? Maybe he's going to address that. Maybe I'll cover the speech, maybe not. I don't know. I got a feeling that maybe it's just going to be a big nothing. And, yeah, I'd like to cover it because, when I covered the Fed meeting itself, that was some of the best live viewership that I ever had. So I think that there's good reason to cover it for that, but if it's just going to be a big nothing, I think it's a waste of a stream. Another thing I think will be a big nothing is this other thing that's going around X right now where everybody's saying, oh, in less than 24 hours, the crypto politics will never be the same. There's some incredible announcement going on. I heard it on Wendy O today. Oh, by the way, speaking of Wendy O, did you guys notice what her thumbnail and title was yesterday? It seems like mainstream crypto is finally catching up to me. Yes, it isn't me being all egotistical and trying to sound like I'm leading everybody, because I know that these people don't pay attention to me. I mean, I'm just two small potatoes to pay attention to. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I find very interesting is that now they're all floating the possibility that maybe this bull run hasn't even started. That maybe we still got a long way to go before anything gets going. It may not start for a while.
Welcome back to the O Show.
Matter of fact, let me pull it up here. Where was that headline? Like, is it possible that crypto hasn't even gotten started yet? Yes, it's very possible. Matter of fact, it is so incredibly likely that actually is the case. Here, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about so you guys know I'm not BSing. Take a look at her headline right here. Crypto bull market hasn't started yet. And it's not just her saying that. CZ has also said that. Now, I do not think that much of CZ, but that's fine. Like, I understand, like, the point that I understand the role that he plays in. I understand the role that he plays in the ecosystem here, but I'm not a fan of him just because, like, this guy literally went to jail, literally did bad stuff, literally broke the law, and apparently the whole crypto industry rallied around him like he was this horrific victim that was just so victimized by cruel and oppressive laws. And he admitted guilt and went to jail. Everybody still acts like he was this horrific victim. But then, when Richard Hart was being attacked by the SEC, they all just collectively took a dump on him. Be like, finally, you got him. At least the SEC's going after somebody that deserves it. And then when Richard beats the SEC, do we hear anything about it from any of these clowns? No. Man, what, are they all jealous that he was the only one that did beat it? Yeah. So, I don't like CZ, but I do agree with him on that. Yes, the bull run has not yet started, and it may not start for a while. That's something that's like, it sounds like I kind of changed my views on these things a lot. I mean, that's one I've been very consistent on. I don't think that starts for a while. And while I see teases of things that will cause the money printer to get going, I still think that they're going to delay it for as long as they possibly can. They don't want to use that money printer card until the last minute. I don't think they want to use it until they absolutely have to, just because of what a nuclear bomb that thing is. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so there's a speech by Jerome Powell tomorrow. Then on the 25th, you've got the initial jobless claims, and then an estimate for quarter 2 GDP that will be released. I'll be very interested in that. Now, a lot of people will say, well, they're already saying that it's a 3% positive GDP. I got a lot to say about the real GDP. And coming up on the 26th of September, you got the PCE and the core PCE, personal consumption expenditures. That data will be released. So there is a ton of economic uncertainty just this week. And then next week, when September ends, you know what happens? You know what's next? You've got the Treasury's quarterly refunding announcement. You also have the potential, and quite frankly, I think it's going to be the likelihood, that the government shuts down. People, this is why September sucks. It's because you have all of this economic uncertainty, all of these reports being released. It's not because it's September. You guys got to realize this, that what causes the month to suck is what happens in the month. It's not just the fact that, it's that month on the calendar. Just like what causes crypto to go up? It's not because, it's the fourth year. Because as you're seeing right now, it's the fourth year. Is it going up? No, it's not. It's always the specific actions, the specific events within the community, within the ecosystem, within the economy that causes it to go up. If you don't get that through your thick skull, you're going to lose a ton of money, and you deserve to lose every single penny of it. Now, one of the coins that I talk about, and that's outside of the RH coins, one of the coins that I talk about is the coined Hyperliquid. And apparently everybody's upset about Hyperliquid. They're more upset with Arthur Hayes, that he sold all of his coins in Hyperliquid after he had said that this thing was going to pump 126x. Hey, do you know like a special character, a main character here in the entire crypto market that doesn't sell the coins that he tells you to buy? Anybody know of a guy like that? I think that his name is Richard, and his last name, what was his last name? Richard Head, Richard Humph, Richard Hoot. Man, I don't know. I think it was something. It was a very anatomical last name. Anybody know what it is? You guys tell me in the chat. Yeah, so there's this guy that said, hey, buy Hyperliquid. It's going to do 126x. And a lot of people bought. And then he sold. That's Arthur Hayes, who I like, actually. But apparently some people are all speculating on what the deal is. What he tells us is that he needed a down payment on some new car that he's going to buy, which don't buy for a second. But a lot of other people are thinking that it has to do with the exchange, the rival exchange Aster from Binance, which I don't really give too much credence to either. But now they're talking about the possibility of reducing the supply of the tokens by 45%. Now, I imagine that would help if you reduce the supply by almost half. That would make it more competitive with this other thing that it's supposed to be competing with. But here's the deal. You should never be investing in something just because somebody else told you to. You should never be investing in something just because somebody else is investing in it. You should never be investing in something because of the founder or because of some other character involved in it. If you are, you're an imbecile and you deserve to lose all of your money. Brandon BB me, I'm talking specifically to you, you big dumb fat jerk. I remember you very well going, oh, Richard is a bitch because he isn't pumping the prices. Ugh. So here's something like whenever you find yourself wanting to whine and complain and act all butthurt, look up that guy. Look up that guy, Brandon BB me, and say, do I really want to act like that guy? Take one look at him. I mean, I know you don't want to look like him, but do you want to act like him? I don't think you do. It's a sad story, that one fella. Very sad story. Oh, yeah, I'm going to start calling people's names out because, man, I just do not care no more. I'm just going to be so shameless with calling people out by name for... we got somebody else to call out by name a little bit later on. So that's the story with Hyperliquid. Speaking of calling people out by name, here's what I'd say to, like, everybody watching and really the entire Pulse Chain community, the entire Hex community, you guys... don't harass the other streamers. I mean, I heard Lark Davis again today address Hex and talk about why he doesn't like it. And he could have been a lot more vicious. He could have been a lot more cruel than he was. He didn't really get into specifics about why he doesn't like it. And you know something, guys? Don't harass these guys. If he doesn't like it, fine. We really don't want mainstream crypto talking about these assets right now, because what is the best thing that could happen? What is the outcome of that? The outcome of that is that, well, their listeners go look up these assets, and when they look up these assets, are they going to see very compelling charts that give them reason to invest? No. No, all that they're going to see is some wrecked charts. Do we want that to be the first impression for these people? They want that to be the first impression. I don't want that to be the first impression of people that haven't looked at these charts before. Just like with the whole marketing thing going on. And I'm not trying to hate on that. I'm not going to hate on the marketing with the little drawing tablets and everything. Even though I think it's a waste of time and a waste of money, I'm not going to hate on it. Yeah, because I know a lot of you guys out there are working your butts off on that effort. And I really do hope that I'm wrong and it pays off. But if you didn't see, last stream that I did, I showed indisputable proof, hard evidence that proves I'm right when I say the best marketing is green candles. If you don't remember or if you didn't catch it, look at my last stream. It shows you the most hardcore evidence that is indisputable by every measure that the best marketing is green candles. If you want to help market your favorite coins, the best thing for you to do is to buy more of them. That's all it is. There's nothing else you got to do. You ain't got to have no elaborate marketing scheme, and you certainly ain't got to do no stupid postcards. All you got to do is buy the coins and help support the price. Speaking of marketing, check this out. Why does crypto suddenly explode into unbelievable bull runs, only to crash just as fast? It's not luck. It's not random. It's macroeconomics. In decrypting crypto, you'll uncover the hidden forces driving every major crypto rally, forces tied to the global debt machine, central bank liquidity, and repeating market cycles. This isn't another blockchain basics book. This is the blueprint Wall Street doesn't want you to read. The playbook that shows you why crypto moves when it does, and how to spot the next bull run before it starts. Don't miss the next cycle. Read Decrypting Crypto. Arm yourself with the knowledge to ride the wave before it leaves you behind. Decrypting Crypto by Cairo Code. Available now on Amazon and Audible. So for those of you that need help understanding, or need help explaining, more like it, why the bull market happens, why the crypto cycle happens, that book is written specifically for you to do that. When you got that book, you're going to know exactly how to navigate this bull run when it comes. You're going to know how to maneuver within it inside out, because you're going to know exactly what to look for. That's going to tell you when it started, and it's going to tell you when it ends. And you'll be able to see on the horizon. Like, how do you think Richard was able to call the Bitcoin top 2 cycles in a row on the day? It's not anything magical that he's doing. He just knows what to look at. That's it. So you got that. That will really help you do it. And that's all that you need. And I think that the best thing to use that for is to explain to your friends, because your friends are going to ask questions. And if you don't know the answers to those questions, you're not going to be helping your case. When your friends ask you, hey, I really do want to invest in this crypto thing that I know you do, but I just don't understand it. Like, what really causes it to go up? If you don't have a good answer, they're not going to invest. So please acquire the literacy to be able to answer those questions. That's why I wrote that book. It is available on Amazon, and if you like audiobooks, it is available on Audible. You can get it on either Amazon or Audible. All right, so enough of that here. Let's get back to the news. I talk about how everybody is harassing Richard right now and complaining that he's blocking people. Matter of fact, let's take a look at, he's trending on Twitter right now. Richard Hart is trending. Oh, hey, Hex Deck, I see you there. The Prosperity Project. Yeah, so in the trending here for Richard Hart, here's like this clown right here is saying, oh, yeah, Richard is bitching out because he's blocking people. Yeah, maybe trying to insult a guy right on his feed right here or on his posts is not going to be met with grace. Richard Hart taunting a heartbroken and abandoned community is insane. Abandoned? I mean, what? Because he hasn't live streamed, they say it's abandoned. Now, guys, tell you this, and I need this to get through everybody's skull. If he streamed today, it would not do a damn thing for the price. It would not do a single solitary goddamn thing if he streamed. Why? Because we are in a quantitative tightening environment. That's why. It doesn't matter what he does. Y'all complaining to him, going, Richard. It's just another version of that stupid thing that we all made fun of, where some imbecile, some newbie goes, oh, can't the devs do something? No, they can't do nothing. You think that one guy has the power to make these things go up? And I know what y'all are going to say. You're going to say, oh, he does have the power because he's got the Pulse Chain Sacrifice wallet. And that Pulse Chain Sacrifice wallet he could use to buy the coins and push the price up. Okay, yeah, he could do that. What do you think happens to the investors when he does that? Do you think that they're going to hold strong while he pumps it more? No! They're going to cheat out. That's all you guys have shown that you're going to do, is you're just going to cheat out. You're going to sell at the very first pump. So why should he do that? And why should he waste that piece of ammunition right now in a quantitative tightening environment when everything else in the market is down too? What is the advantage to blowing that now? You see, It's not very impressive to pump the coins back up to sacrifice price right now when everything is down, just so that you can see all of the holders right now completely G'd out and make a mockery out of the entire ecosystem. But what would be a good use of those SAC funds is when the money printers turn back on and all of crypto is pumping, he takes the SAC funds and deploys it into his coins, and his coins outperform and outshine every other crypto asset out there. So money printer turned back on and we're having amazing runs and everything. Ethereum at 25,000, Solana at 1,000. I mean, even Cardanzo at $9, or even PDI at like 50 cents. What would he want to do in that circumstance? What he would want to do in that circumstance is, in addition to the pump that his assets are going to get from the money printer doing what it does, he would like to ensure that his assets outperform and embarrass everything else. That was his bragging point during the last cycle, is that his coin outperformed Bitcoin. That's what it was all about. That's what he constantly went on and on and on about in his streams, is how his coin was better than Bitcoin because his coin did a 10,000x and Bitcoin did what? It did a 69x at best. You only get to fire that shot once. That's it. The same with streaming, if streaming had any effect at all. You only get to fire it once. And really, here's what it's like. Here's what it's like. Anybody out there that is a gun owner, all right? I'm a gun owner. And here's the kind of the deal with me and my ownership of... I'm not showing the screen here. I'm sorry, guys. Didn't notice I wasn't showing the screen. So I'm a gun owner, and here's what happened. Like, for the first couple of months that I owned the handgun, I did not have any ammunition in it. All right, it's a 45. I didn't have any ammunition for it because I didn't have the class yet. I wanted to take the class so I could be a responsible gun owner and know exactly how to use it, how to safely handle it. And also, I'm not a pistol marksman, but I wanted to be able to aim it properly and not be a hazard to myself or anybody else around me. I wanted to be a responsible gun owner. So for the first couple of months, it was unloaded. And the best thing that I could do if somebody was breaking into the house is I could just pull it out and show the gun. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes just showing a gun is enough to scare away the criminals. But if it's a particularly brave criminal and they're coming after you, or maybe they're hyped up on crack or PCP or whatever. When you pull the trigger and they see that it's not loaded and it doesn't do nothing, you got yourself in quite a bit of a pickle, don't you? Yeah, you're really screwing yourself there. You don't want that to happen now, do you? You don't want to show that this one weapon everybody believes is so powerful really isn't loaded and ready to go yet and is not going to have any efficacy. That's why he's not streaming right now, because one, it won't do nothing in a quantitative tightening environment. It won't do nothing with all of the gatekeeping that still exists today. I mean, he gets on a stream and what's he going to do? Hey, buy my coin? Okay, well, where do I buy your coin? Can I go to an exchange and get it? No. So it's a waste of a very good tool that, if used more intelligently later, it will work better later. It's just like, in court cases, your lawyer always tells you, hey, let's save this thing. It will work better. You got a great testimony. Let's save your testimony for the end. It will work better later. You save your most powerful items for later when they're going to be used most effectively. Well, you people that are doing all of your complaining, get that through your stupid head. So here's another schmuck. Wonder Boy going, oh, typical Richard Hart. All about me, myself, and I. He doesn't give a shit. What do you guys want him to do? You want him to deploy the SAC funds telling you guys, it's going to work better later. Because outperforming right now is not going to be very meaningful, but outperforming at the height of the bull run, that will be very meaningful, because then people will not be able to ignore us. They'll ignore us right now. You've seen Rand Nooner do it. Rand Nooner goes, I'm looking at the coins there. I'm looking at the bubbles. Let me close out this hex thing. I don't want that. Let me close out this post chain thing. I don't want that either. So what's this putz here say? Hexicans need to ask themselves who's going to spend any money on Richard Hart coins when no platform will list them. Okay, that's a legitimate question. Richard Hart is on the EU's most wanted. That doesn't matter, guys, because CZ went to jail and Binance Smart Chain still pumped. RH owns 90% of the supply. That doesn't matter either. You could take a look at every single coin on CoinMarketCap, and you will see that there's one person who owns the majority of all of the outstanding coins. In fact, let's do that right now just to prove my point. Investment. I need to make like a little song here that I get like a cartoon character or maybe a hand puppet. And I have like a little puppet like Lamb Chops. If you're old enough to remember Lamb Chops, I'm going to get a little puppet like Lamb Chops. It's going to get them on here and it's going to sing something like investment literacy helps people know what they should be talking about and avoids them from looking stupid. I'm going to have to work on the lyrics, but that's what I'm going to do one of these days. I'm going to go get, let's look at beats actually, because they took a big beating today, no pun intended. Investment all right, I got to do it this way. Investment literacy. All right, so beats on in the Sonic ecosystem. Let's look at the holders. Well, holy smokes. One wallet here up top owns 79% of the supply. In fact, 93% of the supply is owned by the top 10 wallets. This is true of almost every crypto asset out there. So all you imbeciles out there are going, oh, we should invest in hacks because Richard owns 90% of the supply. That's true of almost every crypto asset out there. So again, all of the hate, all of the whining and complaining, none of it is relevant when you think about it for more than 2 seconds. And yeah, there are some people out there who just don't like Richard because they think he's a bad guy. And to that I say, hey, how do you feel about Polkadot? You guys like Polkadot? Really? Okay, well, good. You do like Polkadot, okay. What do you know about Gavin Wood? Know anything about Gavin Wood there? You think he's a good guy? Because I'll tell you what, just type in onto Google, Gavin Wood, little girl. Type that in. Or Gavin Wood, dying little girl. And then you come back and tell me why you think Richard is the biggest scumbag founder in all of crypto after you look at the search engine results for Gavin Wood and little girl. Okay? Oh, hey, Johnny. Yes, Johnny. Yes. Crow owned by 97% of the Crow supply is in the top 100 wallets. Absolutely. It's going to get more concentrated closer into the top. We're going to be like down to like the top 20 wallets going to have most of the supply because Trump organization is going to put our $6 billion into that. Oh, yeah. How did Crow do earlier today here? Because everything's getting beaten down. I'm wondering how that did. I know I bought some earlier this morning. Okay, it's come up a little bit here. It was like at 19 cents. Now it's at 21 cents. Yeah. Okay, so I think I've made my case here. So I say, guys, don't harass the other streamers like Lark Davis or BitBoy or Wendy O or anything because we really don't need them to be talking about our coins right now because right now our coins charts don't look good. When the charts look good, they will talk about it. And we don't have to harass them for it. We don't have to. Johnny says more. BNB, when I checked on a live years ago, was 99%. owned by the top few wallets. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Binance Smart Chain. That was highly centralized. So yes, the other streamers. I mean, if they're gonna be haters, well, they're only gonna be haters because they're only haters when the price is down. When the price is up, everybody turns into one of those. They turn into a fan. Just like now that woke is out of style, you notice how like a lot of these Hollywood types are going to be coming out saying, "Oh, I was against woke all along." I guarantee you're going to be seeing a lot of that. And when the prices are up, the hate is going to be non-existent, or it's going to be a thing of the past. And I also think that like now it's just not a good time to have people talking about our coins because are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? No, their prices are down and like the yields on staking is not even that great right now. So is there really anything to talk about? No. And Richard is not being a guest on all of these other programs, and that's for good reason. Like, remember last cycle, he was a guest on so many programs. You would see him on not just crypto shows. Like, yeah, you saw him on Rand Nooner, you saw him on Wendy O, you saw him on, BitBoy. You saw him on that. But you also saw him on mainstream TradFi shows too. Like, he was on Meet Kevin. He was on Charles Payne. He was all over the place. And that was when he just had eHex. Well, now he has a whole new chain, which that's a greater order of magnitude to promote. And you think, well, he should be on all the shows trying to promote that, right? He would. He would be if there was a good reason, if there was an advantage, if there was a benefit to doing that. The reason he's not doing it right now is because there's just no benefit to doing it right now in a quantitative tightening environment where the Treasury yields are over 4%. Everybody, please get that through y'all's heads. All right. Now, let's talk about those. Let's talk about those Treasury yields and everything. I'm going to talk about the quantitative tightening environment and what's going on here with it. Because until that gets fixed, I don't foresee a bull run happening. I don't see a bull run happening with a Treasury yield above 4%. I don't see a bull run happening with the Fed still doing quantitative tightening and tapering their balance sheet. Why is that going on, though? Especially like they just cut the interest rates, but the interest rates on the long term went up. What's doing that? Well, how is that possible? I'll show you exactly how that's possible. Because you see, what it is here is that the interest rates on a 10-year Treasury, particular, those are not going to be based off of what the Fed sets the rates at. A lot of people think that that's how it goes. That's not how it goes. It's not what sets the rates. You see, the 10-year Treasury is based off of growth and inflation expectations. And it's still high right now because growth and inflation expectations are still high. Really, it's inflation expectations that I think are still high. Why is inflation expectations still high? I mean, didn't we fix inflation? Let me show you a couple of things here. One, I got to prove that I'm right here before I try to go about furthering this thesis. So check this chart out. This shows is the GDP, which is the blue shaded area, and the 10-year Treasury yield, which is the black line. I mean, look at these here. These guys kind of look like they're not perfectly correlated, but generally speaking, they kind of follow the exact same path. That is not an accident. And if we look closer at it, what you'll see is that the blue goes up first. Or, I'm sorry, the black actually goes up first. Because if I'm starting right here, we get a little pop in the 10-year Treasury, and then we get this pop right up here in the GDP. The 10-year Treasury starts climbing, so does the GDP. Because that 10-year Treasury is predicting what they think GDP will be. But you got to remember here, though, it's not always real GDP. It could be just inflation. Could be just inflation. And let's see, our chart right here is related to it. We take a look at the federal funds rate, which is the red line, and then the unemployment rate, which is the blue line. What do you notice here? Whenever there is a spike up in the federal funds rate and it tops out and starts coming down, that's when the unemployment rate goes up. Now, federal funds rate, that's what the Federal Reserve sets, and they usually bring it down when they think that a recession is coming, and a lot of times they're already too late. Like you see with a lot of these here, the gray shaded areas represent recessions, and you can see sometimes we're already in a recession when they start cutting rates, like here in 1970s. And then also here in 1990, and they gotten a little bit better at front-running the recession in 2000 and 2008. They started cutting, but we still went into one. But notice how the unemployment rate spikes right up. So what this tells us here is that interest rates, they are not going to be something that controls the economy. Interest rates, rather, are a reflection of the economy. When they start going down, that means the economy is going down. Particularly with the 10-year Treasury, but also with even on the short end of the curve, the federal funds rate, which is an overnight rate. When that's going down, it's likely the economy is going down because they know that there won't be a lot of borrowing because there won't be a lot of economic expansion. So now, hey, if not a lot of people are going to be borrowing money, we can afford to, we need to attract people to want to borrow by reducing the rates. That's what's going on here with this. So that's my thesis, that these rates are governed more so by growth and inflation expectations than anything else. So why then, I mean, the economy doesn't look really good right now. Why is the rate still high on the 10-year Treasury? I mean, if you're thinking we're going to have 4% GDP, no, I mean, it'd be great if we did, but we're not going to have that. It's pricing in 4% inflation. Why, though? We had the federal funds rate up above 5.5% for a long time, and the treasuries and everything on the high end of the curve, they were up pretty high too for a long time. So why is inflation so persistent? Now, I would have thought last time that the interest expense for all these companies was being passed along to the consumer. For as long as they kept these rates high, they kept them too8 for too long, and the companies couldn't afford it, and they're passing along to the consumer. That may still be true, but I found a better candidate for that. Found a better candidate for why we're having such persistent inflation, and that's this here. Electricity costs have been going through the roof, and when the price of electricity, that's practically the price of energy, when that goes up, well, the price of everything goes up too, because just about everything runs on electricity, and those costs definitely get passed along to the consumer. So the grocery store, they got to keep the lights on, and if it costs them more to keep the lights on, who do you think pays for that? You, the customer, pays for it. Why are electricity costs going up? I mean, this chart right here blames it all on China, which, by the way, if you're going to be an MBA or a CFA or any type of financial analyst at all, if you ever get asked a question that you don't know the answer to, you know what the best answer is you can give that's like a blanket answer that kind of covers your butt and makes you look smart? You just say, China. No matter what the question is, you can use that. Why is the economy bad? China. Oh, okay. Hey, why is the economic outlook not so good? China. Why is inflation so high? China. Something about a country with 1 billion people in population that gets everybody to just excuse whatever is going on there. When they hear that, they think of 1 billion people and just go, oh, yeah, it's, that covers it right there. You see, it's vague and specific enough at the same time to answer just about any question that you don't know the answer to. But, yeah, the electricity costs are high because of AI. Everybody's constantly running AI without profit. And it's costing this much here. And China in particular is really scooping it up on the AI because they want to win the AI race against the United States. And they were coming up with really trash AI. Like that whole DeepSeek thing that everybody was panicking about. I thought it was the biggest piece of trash ever because the results that it produced were just so inferior to any other AI that I've seen. But they're still burning up a lot of energy doing it. And because everybody is wasting so much time with these AI language models and the AI everything, electricity costs are going up. And I think that's really what's causing the inflation. And the only way that we fix this and get it down is, one, well, the AI's got to be more efficient, and it has to actually be productive and do something. We need it to do more than just draw us a picture or write us a poem. I mean, really, those are things that humans should be doing. We should have AI doing the things that suck, like, I don't know, reviewing life insurance applications. You should have AI reviewing that. And then humans go and write songs. But we got to do everything backwards in the world today, apparently. So this is why inflation has been so persistent and sticky, I think, is just that the electricity expenses, they're really skyrocketing. Oh, and also to prove my point that the interest rates are caused by growth and inflation expectation is this here. This chart shows the spread between the earnings on the S&P 500, the earnings yield, and the 10-year Treasury. That spread is practically one and the same. Because you see, this blue line, it doesn't show the two yields. It shows the same yield, but what's the spread between them? What's the difference if you subtracted one from the other? It's really close to zero. It's at negative 0.5 right now. That's very close to zero. Just a little bit below zero is what it is. And that just shows that a lot of times the 10-year Treasury tracks what they think the overall economy is going to do. So we do need that to go down lower, because when it goes down lower, that means we're in a recession, and that's when the Fed is most likely to turn on the money printer and get this bull market started, get us pumping again. All right. Now, I'll talk about the GDP here for a moment, because you're going to hear a report coming out there's a report coming out this week about GDP. It's the first couple of estimates. But here's something else I saw that it was from the Kabisi letter that makes 0 sense to me. It says, since 2020, we've had a 54% expansion in GDP. U.S. nominal GDP has grown 54% since the 2020 lows, making the strongest economic expansion since World War II. Now, if you're talking about the recovery from the shutdown of the economy in 2020, I do believe that part. Because, you shut off the world and then you turn it back on, you're going to have a very enormous number. But you see, when you're looking at a genuine recession where it does look like the end of the world, well, that would be the 2008 financial crisis. And when you take a look at that, that's this one right here. It says from 2009 to 2014, it only went up 23%. Only 23%. And it's about roughly the same amount of time. It's 5 years. And things were kind of worse than ever back then, right? But somehow, over here in 2020, we were able to go up much more. That's because you shut the economy off, and then you turned it back on. So, of course, you're going to have a bigger number there. So it wasn't really a genuine recession, and more like a manufactured recession in that sense. But what really has caused all of this is the money printing that was done in 2020 and 2021, because it says right here, in other words, in dollar terms, the U.S. economy has grown twice as fast as it did after emerging from 2008. That's because they did twice as much money printing. That is how powerful that money printer is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that money printer today. in addition to the money printer, let me show you this here, like how powerful is it going to be when they turn it on. We got this here to kind of help us out with that. The dollar index is clinging onto this support line. See, right now it's at 97. What is it? 97.32 right now. When they made this chart, it was at 97.64. But here's the deal with that. Take a look at the points on the chart. It's been holding this line here. It's not gone below this support line since 2011. So if it breaks that, it's breaking a 14-year support. And that's where last time I was talking about Gareth Soloway. He says if it breaks that, it can go all the way down to 70. That's how it's possible. That's how it's possible there. So, tell you what, we had like a small break in it during the Fed meeting, but then it shot right back up. If it does it again, that dollar is going to be extremely weak, and that is going to be very good for the prices of all crypto assets. Very good for them all. Which reminds me, there was this one putz over here on X that's, Johnny knows about this one here because it happened on his feed. There's one putz that tried telling me, if the money printer gets turned on, that's not going to be good for the core coins. That's what he said right here. Printer won't equal gains in our cores. There should be another catalyst, but people won't do another ICO unless Richard comes back. And of course, I got in on this right here. So I wanted to have this guy on my stream because I was hoping that I'd have another bear here. By the way, any bears out there, please reach out to me on X. I want to have you on. All right. T-Bird probably like the closest thing to a bear, so hopefully he and I will have a good discussion when we do. But I was hoping that I'd get this guy to come on right here. So I asked him, like, hey, can you make your case here? Let me see how much I disagree with your opinion. And he says, well, Hex only pumped because of ICO hype, not money printing. False, and I'll show you why that's false. Crypto also pumped on its own in 2017 without money printing. Really false, and I'll show you how it's really false. Fed actually raised rates in 2017 from 0.75 to 1.5 by year end. That's true, but not the whole truth. These are similar drivers. Why would money printing pump Richard core coins? And I said, well, I can take you on all those points. Are you willing to come on a stream? Didn't hear from him for a while, so I just posted this thing of a cricket. And then he says, oh, no, I'm not willing. I'm an anon. I've stopped adding to my Richard cores and instead stacking Ether and debts. If Pulse Chain SAC owns ETH, then I'm throwing on some. I'm going to own some as well. My thesis, very basic. And I said, well, if you don't want to show your face on stream, I understand that. You can use an avatar, but still haven't heard from him since. So let's take each one of his little arguments here on one by one. The first thing he says is that Hex pumped because of ICO hype. Well, let's take a look here at the charts. Let me dig it up. It's like that ICO narrative was true the entire time that eHex existed when it was first launched, but it really didn't start pumping right away here. Hang on, I gotta switch the screens. Toblerus is here. Hello, Toblerus. So when did Hex really start pumping? Because like on its first launch here, it actually went down right after the first couple of trades from December 2nd to about the end of the year. It actually went down. And then it had a pretty rough January from the start. So that whole time, the ICO narrative was there and it wasn't helping it. But where did it really take off? It was about right here in April of 2020. Hey, what happened in April of 2020? Anybody know? Anybody want to share with the class? Anybody got any idea? Because I'm about to pull it up right here. And it was like this one thing that occurred just roughly maybe the month before So it took some time to like feel the effects of it. But what was it? Well, here's what it is. This, the money printer. March the 2nd, 2020, they turned the money printer on. We went from 4 trillion all the way to 7 trillion. And we did a lot more printing afterwards. Almost took it up to 9 trillion there. You turned on the money printer. That was when Hex really started getting going. It had the ICO narrative the whole time it existed from launch, but it didn't start running until they turned on the money printer. So, +1 for Cairo, -1 for this guy. The second thing he says is crypto also pumped on its own in 2017 without money printing. That is false. That is false. Let's look back at the year 2017. And you see, and I can't really hold the guy. I can't really shit on the guy too much right here. I can't shit on him too much because it looks pretty flat here. When we go from January 2017 to January 2018, this looks pretty flat. But it's not flat in the sense that, like, they didn't do any money printing. I mean, if we want to be as technical about it as we can be, we can say, well, this is just maintenance of the balance sheet. And when they just maintain the balance sheet, when they don't let it taper off, when they just maintain it, and when bonds on the balance sheet mature and they roll the bonds over, take the matured money and buy more bonds with it, that is just as good as money printing. Absolutely just as good as money printing. So, like, we could give that a name here. We could say that it's you could say it's called maintenance or steady maintenance. So it's not quantitative easing, it's not quantitative tightening. It's them just maintaining the balance sheet. See, tightening is when the assets are going down. It's not a straight line across like it is there. Instead, it's a slope downward. This over here, this downward slope, that's tightening. But this here, where it's pretty much straight across from like 2015 all the way to 2018, that's not tightening. That's just steady maintenance, and it's just as good as quantitative easing. All right, and I'll tell you why it's just as good here. I mean, there's been many historical periods throughout it, but when we think about this here, we go through like our 3 possibilities of what the Fed could do. They expand the balance sheet by buying assets. It injects fresh liquidity into the system and lowers long-term interest rates. That's quantitative easing. That encourages borrowing. That encourages investing. That encourages risk-taking. That boosts asset prices, stocks, crypto, real estate, whatever. And when you got, you'll also get yield reductions on the treasuries as well. You get yield reductions on the treasury. We got like 1.6% down in the treasuries from 2020 to 2022. All right. So empirical studies show that QE has broad positive effects on financial conditions and investments. Now, I'll talk about that quantitative tightening, which is what we're experiencing right now, and that's why everything sucks right now. When you shrink the balance sheet, you remove liquidity, which can tighten financial conditions. It raises the yields on everything, and it also increases the volatility. The nasty volatility you guys saw today, that's because of the quantitative tightening going on. There's nothing more to it. It's not that complicated. It's quite simple. Now, the effects can be smaller and more gradual than quantitative easing, but it can also lead to strains. Like in 2019, the repo market had a spike when reserves approached scarcity. And that's something else we'll get into like in our stream to explain what that does. The quantitative tightening, it's not symmetric to quantitative easing. And it's not just QE in reverse, because there are some differences in market reactions. And QT is not always bad. It's just it often is. Sometimes you need to have it. Now let's talk about maintenance steady state, which is what you see on the chart there from 2015 all the way to 2017. When you hold the balance sheet steady, that keeps liquidity ample without adding or removing it, and that supports financial stability by providing a large supply of safe short-term assets like reserves. It reduces money market volatility, and it promotes risk-taking in markets like increased hedge fund activity, higher asset valuations in stocks and real estate, and yes, crypto. It maintains the accommodative effects from prior expansions, and it lowers the yields and resilient payment systems, and it doesn't tighten the balance sheet in any way, so you don't have the tightening pressure from reduction. Now, it lacks the fresh stimulus that you get from quantitative easing, so its positive impact is not as great as it is with quantitative easing, but it can be, in some ways, a little bit just as good, according to the Brookings Institute and the Cleveland Fed. And there have been many periods of that there where we see that happen. Some examples, like besides the 2015 to 2017, well, 1982 to 1987, you had a pretty stable balance sheet, and those were pretty good years because the stock market went up 150% in those 5 years. From 1990 to the year 2000, that was the tech boom. They had a very stable federal balance sheet, and the stock market did 340% in those 10 years. And then from 2003 to 2007, you had a very stable federal balance sheet, and we went up 87% in there in that time frame. So having a pause or just steady state maintenance in the balance sheet is just as good as the money printer going off and doing quantitative easing, because, for one, like what it does is you had to do some easing to get up to it. It gives the market, the investment markets, room to breathe and absorb all of that money that came from the money printer going off. Because, like, when you look at before this flat line, look at this here from, let's see, this was September 2008, I think. From 2008 all the way up to 2015, they printed all this money, so it took a long time for all that money to be absorbed by the financial assets. So anyway, this guy that I was arguing with here says, oh, they didn't do no money printing. Yeah, they did. They did, because they had to maintain the balance sheet. And you maintain the balance sheet, that's just as good as money printing. He said Fed raised the rates, which is true. Let's take a look here at that federal funds rate. Federal funds rate history. Got to go to Fred. And let's see. I want to look at the last 10 years, but specifically I want to look at up to 2016 up to 2018. Okay. Let's switch the screen here. All right. So here we start the year, January 2017, at 0.65%. They raise it to 0.9. Going from 0-something to 0-something, it may as well have stayed at 0. That does not really affect how many people are going to be wanting to borrow. That's not, that's not discouraging enough to have a real negative effect. And the same here when it goes up to 1.15%. That's a little discouraging, not that discouraging, though. And I think I remember that Bitcoin did have a dip in July of 2017, so you felt it there. You felt the effect of it. But they paused for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, all the way up until November. And in fact, the pause was still effective here until December, because December was when they had raised it. This was a raise here in December, and that was the top of the Bitcoin market cycle in 2017. And going from 115 to 130, well, now finally you're starting to discourage people from borrowing. You see, the rates had been so low at zero interest rate policy for so long that now that you finally are putting some percentage points on the rate, it wasn't discouraging at first because it was still close to zero, but once you went above 1%, it got discouraging, and then that is going to have some negative bearish effects. So, well, the guy was right on this point, and he was telling the truth. It wasn't the whole truth. There was more to the story. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, what I'm going to go through for you guys is what's happening with the Treasury buying back its own bonds. Is that something that really matters? And then also, why is the Ethereum chart eerily familiar? And also, you guys hear a lot on X, or you see this chart a lot on X, that M2 is at an all-time high. Like, that's something we should panic about. I want to look a little bit closer on that, because what that's suggesting is that they did money printing. But I got another take on it right here. The increases in M2 is really not all that great yet. So, give it a short break here. I'm going to play you this little ad. You're listening to a Reinvent Ideal live stream. The phrase reinvent ideal isn't just clever wordplay. It's a manifesto. For decades, society handed us a dusty old blueprint for life. Work 9 to 5, climb a corporate ladder, buy a house you can't afford, marry young, pump out kids, spend 40 years in a hamster wheel, and if you're lucky, retire at 65 with a gold watch and arthritis. That's the ideal we inherited, but it's a lie. A boomer-delivered illusion that made sense in 1970. But in today's world, it's a recipe for debt, burnout, and disappointment. Reinvent Ideal is the antidote. It's about rejecting the outdated script and designing a new one. A life where freedom, autonomy, and leverage replace status chasing and financial enslavement. Where your ideal isn't dictated by suburbia and social media, but what keeps you sane, sovereign, and alive. Instead of status symbols, we pursue rare and in-demand skills that buy independence. Instead of debt-fueled materialism, we choose minimalism, shedding liabilities and obligations. Instead of working to death, we embrace crypto and investments that multiply freedom instead of shrinking it. The new ideal isn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about building a life that maximizes your time, choices, and sovereignty. Reinvent Ideal is about giving yourself permission to redraw the map. And there is the explanation for the channel name, in case you were wondering. Now, I got some more stuff here worth discussing. Let's start with the treasuries and what's going on with those. I think that's the big deal here, is what's happening with these treasuries that are being bought back by the government. You see, there's about $138 billion just in the year 2024, which was double the previous year's amount. And it's not really that much to matter in the long term of things. I'm not saying that this is a big deal yet, but it could be the first snowflake that causes the avalanche. Because you see, what's going on here, when the government is buying back their treasury bonds, let me show you something here with that. Let's go back to the chart on the treasury yields. It's not a normal thing. They don't normally do this. So just focus on this line right here of the yield chart. These treasuries. Because all it shows us here is just how there's your short-term ones. The first four, those are T-bills. Then from here to here are your T-bond, your T-notes. Everything after that is a T-bond. And it's all just dictated by how long is the asset, how long does it last for. But it's not some plan to be financially responsible. When they say they're buying back the bonds, that just means they're paying down the debt. They're paying off the debt. They might say, well, they're calling the bonds. It means the same thing. If you ever hear them say they're calling the bonds, it just means they're paying back the bonds, they're paying down the debt. It is not because they're just now deciding to be financially responsible. I mean, there's $37 trillion worth of federal debt. If they were trying to be responsible, they should have started a long time ago. I think what's really going on here is a desperate measure to stabilize liquidity and hide the fact that a lot of investors don't want these bonds. And they're also trying to prevent a broader financial crisis, something worse from happening. So that's maybe why they're buying back these bonds. Because, you got to think about this here. Like, the bond market has been in the horrific bear market since 2020. And they have successfully fed everybody the illusion that we got economic strength here in the United States. But there's a lot of warning signs that global liquidity is in trouble. Borrowing costs are high. And fiat money is in real trouble too. So, right now, we're at $37.43 trillion in the national debt. And all of that is in treasuries in some shape or form, which you can see illustrated here on the yield chart. It's not looking good for America because Moody's downgraded the United States from AAA to AA1, and in Moody's ratings, that's just a one step down is all that is. But here's the big problem, is that China's treasury holdings went down lower. They hit a new low of $730 billion. That doesn't sound like a lot when you're talking about $37 trillion, but for the United States to have to buy $138 billion when we depend so much on foreigners to buy our treasuries and fund our nation's debt, they cover about $9 trillion altogether, the foreigners investing in the treasuries. When we have to buy any of that treasury debt from our foreign investors, that is a problem because it doesn't make us look good. All right. Now, the U.S. Treasury is the buyback program is very unusual. It's a form of government intervention that's very unusual because buying back your own debt, it looks like you're being financially responsible, but how people really read it is it's panicking. All right. And when you look at the buybacks that are occurring right now and have occurred last year, here's how it looks. The investing public that has treasuries, they want to put about $29 billion worth of treasuries up for sale that day. When you put that much stuff, when you put that many treasuries up for sale, the price of those treasuries are going to go down and the yields are going to go up. When that happens, borrowing costs for the government will go up as well. If you raise the yields, the yield is the interest rate that the government has to pay on the national debt. So the U.S. Government bond market is supposed to represent safety and liquidity. And here you got all these foreigners that are dumping their bonds and pushing their prices down. The reason that the government is buying back their own bonds is they're afraid that when those bonds go up for sale, they won't catch a bid, or they'll catch a bid, but they won't catch a good bid. They're going to fall really low. All right. And so what they are doing here, these are called liquidity buybacks. And what that means is they want to still create the illusion that the treasury market is a very liquid market and it's easy to get in and out of them because of how safe and secure these U.S. treasuries are. Somewhere at Scott Bessent's office, they had reason to believe that a seller of treasuries was not going to be able to have that experience. And when they try to sell their treasuries, there wouldn't be somebody there to buy it, so the price of the treasury would go down dramatically and the yield would go up dramatically. And they took action by stepping in right away. They're like, oh, we're going to buy it right now. All right? So it's like sweeping dirt under the carpet is what's going on. And what's causing this is a liquidity crisis. What we want to look at is Bloomberg's Government Bond Liquidity Index, which couldn't find the most up-to-date version of it because I ain't got a Bloomberg terminal, but I'll show you the one that I did find. And it doesn't make us feel any better here. Check this out. Or it doesn't make me feel any better. So they talk about liquidity in the Treasury market. How they measure it is in the yield. Because you see, the higher the yield, well, the lower the price of the bond. That also means the lower the liquidity that is available for that bond. And last time that the Treasury yields were this high was the year 2010, which was not a good time for Treasuries. Not a good time. It was just coming off the financial crisis. So now, those yields are right back up to where they were and could go higher. And if they go higher, well, the government's going to have to buy back a lot more of their bonds. They may also have a bigger problem if they try to issue more of these bonds and they can't get anybody to buy them. What fixes this? The money printer is what fixes that. If that's what occurs, they're going to have to do quantitative easing. They're going to have to expand the federal balance sheet because that's the only thing that fixes something like this, where you got those Treasury yields just going way too high. You have the Fed step in, buy a whole bunch of these things, and push those prices back down. All right. There's also some broader implications, like the bond market stress. Right now, it contrasts with stock market highs, which kind of paints over the cracks. But the issues could spill into global liquidity and affect everything in the system. So the higher yields, that raises costs for all borrowers, not just the federal government, but anybody that is using credit of any sort. The Fed rate cuts, which are kind of going into stagflation, they support Treasury liquidity, but really they only buy time. Just like these buybacks. They don't really fix the problem. They just buy you more time to fix the problem. The only thing that's going to fix this problem is going to be the money printer. Now, also, U.S. adoption of stablecoins might extend dollar dominance, but they're still going to have to do a lot of money printing to get those yields back down. All right, so that's the story on those Treasury buybacks. When you see on X somebody posts something like a press release that says, "Oh, the Treasury just bought back a couple billion worth of their bonds," this is what's happening. Is they're trying to hide the fact that many other participants in the bond market don't want those bonds. They want to hide that because it's pretty embarrassing for the United States and it could cause bigger problems later. Now, another story here that I think is the most hopeful story is this one. Let me get our charts up here. The Ethereum chart. Let's see, this one. Is this one I want? Yeah, okay. So here's the Ethereum chart for September so far. Take a good look at it. What we see is that we were down in the dumps in August for the most part. Like we were down at 3,400, right? Or 3,300. Then we had a nice big climb at the beginning, or at the end of August, going into September, and we have stayed above that climb. I mean, like, okay, here we hit $4,900, which supposedly is an all-time high. I'm not impressed with it yet, though. We hit 4,900. Like, that's an all-time high. Well, that's not a very good all-time high. But still, hey, we'll take it for now. And this was August 24th. And then we kind of go down and consolidate for a little while. Sometimes we bounce up a little bit higher, but now we're kind of back down. Back down. This chart looks very eerily familiar. Eerily familiar to a previous cycle. What am I talking about? What period of time am I saying this looks a lot like? It's not 4 years ago. It does look like something from the previous cycle, but not the chart on Ethereum for September 2021, because that's where we were hitting the newest all-time high, pushing $5,000. No, I'm saying it looks familiar to the chart in September 2020, because during that time, well, let's see, here was July. We were down at some pretty harsh lows, but we climbed all throughout August. just like we did this year, climbed all throughout August and finally hit a new high of $477 on September 1st, 2020. After we hit that high, then we took a dump and went back down. And it was nasty. I don't actually, this wasn't a brand new high. It's just, it was a high for this cycle. Because I think that it had a much greater, it had a greater high back in the, it did. Back in the 2017 run, it hit 1,200. So not quite a new high and not quite that great of a price, but it was good for that time in the cycle. So what this tells me is what I've been saying all along and what everybody else is refusing to acknowledge or refusing to say. The whole bull run is not extended. The bull run is delayed. I know all these schmucks out there are posting this crap saying, oh, alt season's over. It never even started. It's been delayed. We just hit what we had hit in 2020. We are delayed by 1 full year, you guys. That's why I keep saying, this thing could go all the way into next year. It might not get started until next year because the money printer might not get turned on until next year. When it does, great. Then we have the real bull run. Right now, the chart looks exactly like it did, or very close to what it looked like in 2020. That's how I see it there going on. I mean, you look at the 2020 setup, you had the post-COVID crash. Market recovers from the lows, but it broke a key resistance between August and September, and it built the sentiment that led to a mega multi-month bull run. Well, 2025 is a lot like that. We had some scares, kind of black swanish in the like COVID, in the sense that those tariffs and a lot of other macro shocks, we were pushed down, and then Ethereum broke above resistance. If I broke above resistance and sparking a similar belief in bull market resurgence. So markets are choppy right now, and they're not going up linearly. And there is still a possibility of a lot of dips ahead. I think we have a difficult time ahead of us for September. We might even have a very difficult Q4 ahead of us. But once we get it behind us, and once they turn that money printer back on, well, then we experience the up only. And also, we'll talk about like the Ethereum BTC ratio. When you look at that from 2020, that consolidated with a weekly, what they call a spinning top candle. That's just a way that marks indecision. And it was followed by a lot of red candle weeks. And it drifted lower. Then it hit a bottom, and then it had a powerful rally throughout the rest of the year. 2025. Got kind of the same thing going on because we had another spinning top candle. I'm not really one for technical analysis, but the MACD indicator is at nearly identical levels to where it was in 2020, which it rolls over during consolidation. So there's still a lot of short-term downside ahead of us. If we're going to have, maybe we'll still have a year-end surge. But the way to look at this is not to say that it's an extended cycle. It's to say it is a delayed cycle. Also talk about the delayed cycle and like what else supports that. This is something I know you guys have been seeing going around on X. Everybody is complaining about this. A lot of people are roasting the community because of this here. Take a look at this. What this shows is blockchains and how they performed in their first 860 days. Oh, AVAX, they went up 1,100%. BNB, 3,800. Solana, 2,100. Luna, now Luna is not something I would brag about, you know. Yeah, it did an 89x, but it was all built on fraud now, wasn't it? Phantom, which isn't around anymore, it got rebranded to Sonic, did a 90x, which, hey, great. Yeah, well, I was a big fan of Phantom. I was using it and everything. But take a look at it right now. I mean, like, here's another thing that they don't say in this chart is they don't show you, well, what are these coins doing right now in this cycle? Only 2 of them, I think, are doing any good, and that's Binance and Solana. Whereas Phantom doesn't exist anymore, and its replacement, Sonic, is not doing that great. And Luna doesn't exist anymore, or not like it used to. Like there's Luna Classic, it's practically dead. Cello and all that. So they just make it look like, yeah, all this stuff is really good, but then Pulse Chain down here is sucking at negative 86%. Can anybody tell me why this chart is fundamentally flawed and why nobody should take it seriously? Anybody got any idea why? Or what's the... Like, this chart is true, but it's not the whole truth. What is the piece of truth that is missing from this chart? Anybody know? Anybody? I'll give you a free copy of one of my books here. All right, Johnny's got something. He says, all those blockchains were listed and fully supported by mainstream. Okay, that's true. It's true. Not quite the answer I'm looking for. Something else was happening during the launch of these chains. Anybody know? Let me fact check myself here before I release the answer. I'm not even sure that that's like totally true of the Binance Smart Chain, because that one was released in the 2017 cycle, and it was released pretty late into it. Actually, I think it got like released right around the time that they hit the bear market. Yeah. Okay, so that's the one that would stand out. Yes, Johnny, you got it. Money printing. Exactly. Most of these coins here that they're talking about were released during a period of quantitative easing. All right. You know what it is here? You can see my answer on the screen, because you see my reply to T-Bird. Those coins launched during quantitative easing, whereas Pulse Chain has only existed during quantitative tightening, and you can't fight the Fed. This proves my point that the most important thing that matters is, what is the Fed doing? Are they in a period of easing or are they in a period of tightening? This means it doesn't matter what Richard Hart does right now. It doesn't matter if he streams or if he doesn't stream. It doesn't matter if they spend $1 bajillion on marketing. You can't fight the Fed. That is a phrase that is frequently repeated on Wall Street, frequently repeated in investment analysis. You can't fight the Fed, so don't try. You are at the mercy of the monetary policy, and there's nothing that can be done to overcome it. I know that doesn't sound, that's not easy to hear. It's not nice. We don't like that. It can feel pretty nihilistic sometimes. But let me give you some hope here, because a lot of people are thinking, well, I keep seeing this thing that says that the global M2 or US M2 is now higher than ever, which is true, it is. But is that really indicative that they've been doing money printing? You're probably looking at this chart right here, and the blue in this chart shows all of the money printing that's gone on. This one, I think, goes all the way back to the 1960s. Let's chop it down to the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, when you look at the money printing, well, it was still expanding all throughout 2017. It's not it's not a very dramatic rise, but it's still a rise. Lots of money being printed here. And it's not always from the Fed. You see, money printing can occur, just when people swipe their credit card, that prints money. But private banks, they can do money printing as well. Commercial banks in particular, whenever they lend money to a business, that money that they lend is new money created on the spot. But take a look at this here. It's pretty steady all throughout 2015 to 2020. But then here, boom, look at all the lines really spike up, particularly the red and the yellow. Because you see what that red and yellow tells us is the money supply year over year growth. And there's M1 and there's M2. And the differences between them is like M1 is just money in circulation in the form of dollar bills, like printed dollar bills. Whereas M2, Well, that's like all of the money in circulation that's printed dollar bills on paper, and then also dollar bills in bank accounts and money markets, easily investable liquid money that could be moved into assets. So it really blows off right here, and that's just where we had the very nice, very fun 2021 bull run. But then take this out here. It goes down. The year-over-year growth goes down. So let me shorten this from 10 years to the last 5 years. And you look at that. I mean, for one thing, this blue graph, these bars look a lot flatter. They don't look as impressive as they did before. All right. And that shows that, like, yeah, the money printing has not been as great as of lately as it was during that bull run, that last bull run we had, 2021. And then when you look at the year-over-year growth here for, the red line was the M2 year-over-year growth. That's the one that we kind of care about the most. That actually went negative in 2023, and it stayed negative all the way up until March 2024. And M1 was just like it. The M1 money supply, that stayed negative all the way up until recently here. Well, not too recently, but up until September 2024. What happens in March 2024? Let's look at another chart, because there's a chart that shows you what happened in March 2024, and I remember it was a pretty good time. Let's see. Let's have a peek here at Bitcoin. Let's have a peek at Ethereum. And for the fun of it, let's have a peek at Hex. We'll do the pulse chain version of Hex, too, on that. What happened there? I got to stretch this back. So here is March. Look at that, March the 12th. That was when the M2 growth finally went positive. And what effect does that have on Bitcoin? It has a very positive effect, because if you remember, March 2024, Bitcoin not only hit the first new all-time high of this cycle, it hit the new all-time high before the halving. Do you understand this yet, guys? What this is showing you, what this is indisputable proof of, is that money printing is more powerful than even the halving. We've never seen that before. We've never seen Bitcoin hit a new all-time high before the halving, in the year of the halving. But we did see it here. Just a month before the halving, it hit a new all-time high. Why? Because there was money printing going on in March. That's why. Oh, I'm not showing the chart here. Sorry, guys. Hang on, I'll show you the chart. I'm over here freaking out and being really dramatic, and then it's not showing the chart. How to be a professional YouTuber. All right, so here's what it is. March 13th, 2024, we hit $73,000. That was a new all-time high for Bitcoin, and it was a month before the halving, and it was because money printer just went positive, or M2 growth just went positive. All right, so really, it's not the Fed's balance sheet that was the money printer in that aspect. It was just banks doing what they do. That caused that. So I hope that what you take from this is that it is money printing that causes bullish action more than anything else. It is more powerful than the halving. It is more powerful than ETFs. It is more powerful than Michael Saylor. It's more powerful than Treasury companies. It's more powerful than anything Richard Hart could do for his own damn coins. You want some proof of that? Well, let's take a look at some of the other coins then, how they did when M2 went positive. Go to Ethereum. go to Ethereum and look at March 2024. How did it do in March of that year? It did pretty good. Look at that. March 11th. That was when Ethereum hit $4,000 for the first time in this cycle. Is my point proven to you guys yet? Now let's take a look at Hex on Pulse Chain. Let me get the chart ready. Or actually, here, I'll share the screen. You guys can watch me get it ready. All right, so let's close it out here. Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta move it over here. All right, bring it here, and then here, and then scooch. All right. So roughly around that time, where was the price of Pulse Chain Hex? 2.33 cents. Anybody know why that price is significant or why it may be significant? 2.33 cents. Gee, what's going on there? What's the deal with that? It's about halfway to its all-time high, a little bit more than halfway, because like the highest high that it ever had was 4 cents. That was the highest it ever got, which occurred in December. But here, when M2 went positive, that was when Hex, for Pulse Chain version of Hex, this was an all-time high for it before December, because like December was the all-time high, where it had 4 cents, but this was as high as it had ever gone before then, was about 2.5 cents. So this proves my point that I have said a gazillion times, that the money printer is all that really matters. And until they turn on that money printer, the bull run doesn't really happen. Now, we look a little bit closer here at the action of money printing. We can kind of see that it all sort of converged right here in December 2024. If I pulled up the Bitcoin, the Ethereum, and the Hex charts for December 2024, we'd see similar action of them reaching new highs. Bitcoin hit a new high. That was where Pulse Chain Hex reached its high of 4 cents. After that, let's make the chart just a little. Shorten it down just to 1 year. This looks way flatter than it did before. How about year to date? Yeah, this all looks pretty flat. It looks really, really flat. So they say, oh yeah, M2 is growing. Well, it's not growing by that much right now, and it just recently hit the exact place of $22 trillion of where it was way back in, why is it not showing this to me? 22 trillion is where it was on April 2022, or it just passed it. It just passed where it was. We really haven't seen anything yet, is what I'm trying to say. Because the money supply growth has been pretty slow, pretty steady, practically flat. Not quite, but practically flat. And look how well the crypto market has been doing since. All right. We had a few coins hit new highs, namely Bitcoin, Solana, Binance Smart Chain. And then other coins, they're getting close to their previous highs. I'm talking Ethereum. But also, many other coins, though, are still suffering. This is why they're suffering. There just hasn't been a lot of new money added to circulation. Guys, it is the only thing that really matters. It's the only thing that really matters is that money supply or how much is being printed. That's it. Wall-to-wall TV says people are whining because Hex is 99% down after 4 years. It's down from the top, but it's down from the top that it had 4 years ago. But the thing is still up 1,000%. And no, doing a 10,000x is not an excuse. Pepe and Shib vastly outperform Hex and are only down 65 to 85% respectively. Well, first off, Hex is actually, if you're talking about a Hex on Ethereum, that is still actually up 1,000%. Let's check Dogecoin here, because I know that one's up, but like, how up is it from the all-time? It's up 43,000%. So yeah, it's better. Take a look at the chart, though. How better does it look? Let me take a look at this here. Does this look all that... it looks like it's about halfway to where it could be. We hit the log, and then on the log it looks a lot better. But we also got to do that on the Hex chart. So here, let me do the screen share like this. Just share the whole window. So yeah, this looks pretty good for Dogecoin. What about when we do the same for Hex on the all-time? We go all-time and hit log. It still looks like it's about halfway from where it used to be. Only about halfway from where it used to be. And it's up 1,100%. How about Shiba Inu? Which I do not much care for. Yeah, Shiba Inu 9% on the all-time chart. Only up 9%. So, no, Shiba's not looking all that great. How's it doing so far this year? It's up 4%. Okay. I mean, that's respectable for Shiba Inu, but yeah, Shiba's only up 9%. Hex is up 1,100%. The Ethereum Hex. Dogecoin is up 43,000%, which, hey, we get to think of a couple of reasons why Doge is up that high. Mainly because of, like, there's a famous government agency named after it, and there is also a very rich man that may or may not be getting behind it or anything. So I don't think that that's a very fair apples-to-apples comparison. But what matters the most, wall-to-wall, what matters the most, everybody listening, as I hopefully proved to you guys here on this stream, is that nothing is as powerful as that money printer. Nothing is as meaningful as the money printer. Nothing even comes close. Now, I know that you guys are frustrated. I know that you guys are tired. I am too. When I have T-Bird on, I want him to convince me that he's right, that this thing is going to be all over within just a few months, because I just want to sell and get out of all this. And a lot of people right now are saying, well, it is all over. This is the start of the bear market. I've bookmarked them on X because I'm going to rub it in their faces when they all turn out to be wrong. I can't wait to do that. But I want to show you guys one last thing here to give you a little bit of hopium, a little bit of optimism. You see, you may have heard the phrase, bull markets climb the wall of worry, and bear markets slide down the slope of hope. Here's an example of what we mean here. Nobody ever calls the top right on the spot, except for Richard, but that's not normal. But the market doesn't top when everybody says, hey, I think we hit the top, and everybody's calling for a crash. When everybody expects a crash, the market usually does not top there. And a lot of people do expect a crash in stocks. They expect something to happen with the stock market going down. They keep pointing out, oh, stocks are so overvalued, or gold is at an all-time high. It never happens then. You see, when it happens, when the real crash happens, is when everybody sees everybody else getting rich and looking like they're getting rich easy, and then they feel dumb for not doing the same thing. They feel serious FOMO, and they join in. When the last bear becomes a bull, that is when the crash occurs. That is when the bear market begins. Just like when the last bull becomes a bear, that's when the bull market begins. Now, Sir Isaac Newton, we all believe, was a very intelligent man for discovering gravity. He got caught up in this mess here with the South Sea stock. There was a company called South Sea. And he invested a little bit right here in 1720. And then the stock basically quadrupled right here. And Newton decided, hey, you know what? I quadrupled my money. I'm happy. I'm going to sell, and I'm going to exit. This would have been the end of the story had he never looked back. But here's what happened. His friends were still in South Sea stock, and here was all of this parabolic growth that it was going through, this parabolic top that it had, this run-up that it had right here. Great God candle occurred. His friends were getting rich, and they were getting rich easily, and he's just like, well, hey, I'm smarter than my friends. I'm Sir Isaac Newton. I discovered gravity, and my stupid idiot low IQ friends are making more money than me. I can't have that. So he re-enters his position right here later, closer to the top, and he does make a little bit of money, but what he doesn't know is that this was the top. And here comes mild correction, and then here comes the crash. And poor old Newton, he didn't exit until it went right down here, which is lower than where he exited the first time. So he lost all of his money in that. Very sad story from how a brilliant man lost a lot of money. You guys got to watch out for this here. You guys got to really police yourselves. I mean, the first thing is what he did at the beginning, where it says he exits happy. He should have stayed out. Should have, not paid any attention to the market at all. When you guys set your prices for when you're going to begin selling, don't look back, because it's going to get very tempting. You're going to feel like you're missing out while other people that are dumber than you are making easy money. Don't fall for that, because all of it is a trap. You're never going to be able to time the top. Don't try to. Instead, set a price now that's going to be your exit price, and you stick to that, and you hold on. And remember, the only thing that matters is that money printer. And if you need help understanding how that works and how these bull runs go, and you need help being able to navigate it and being able to determine when does it end or when is it getting close to the end, that's where you want to get the book, Decrypting Crypto. It's available on Amazon, available on Audible. You just search Decrypting Crypto and punch in my name, Cairo. You will find the book. All right. And that's it for us today. So we might do a stream tomorrow with the announcement or the speech that Jerome Powell is going to do. Might do it, might not do it. But one thing I definitely will do tomorrow is I will be in Tam Tam's spaces for Hexagon University. So I'll see you there. Cairo out. That is it for us today, you glorious degens. Smash that subscribe button to join the rebellion, and follow me on X at ReinventIdeal for more unfiltered truth bombs between live streams. And if this was your first time listening, head over to reinventideal.substack.com, because I have a free gift waiting for you there. If you become a free subscriber, you'll get a free copy of my book, Your Parents Were Wrong, Debunking and Replacing Outdated Advice, packed with the wisdom to outsmart the system. It's absolutely free to join, so no excuses. Grab it before the suits catch on. And remember, the bears get blocked right here and told to shut the FUD up. Until next time, this is Cairo Copeland, your millennial Moses, here to